I'll start by having you say your complete name
It's Robert W. Yank, Y-A-N-K.
and the division of the 10th Mountain that you served in.
I was in Company K, 85th Mountain Infantry, 1st Platoon, Company K,
And do you happen to remember your serial number
191-33685.
and the dates of service in the 10th Mountain Division?
February about the 13th till Thanksgiving of 1945.
Excellent. And highest rank served?
Uh, Tech Sergeant, which is a platoon sergeant for an infantry platoon platoon.
And your position?
What do you mean?
Your job? I guess your job.
Well, it was the non-com in charge of a platoon, which was about 40 in our infantry platoon, and the commanding officer was a second lieutenant. And it happened to be Gene Hames, who was head of the foundation, and we've become real good friends, and we see him and ski with him every winter now for about 18 winters.
Wow, long time.
Still skiing, except I broke my arm here this last winter up in Canada.
Now, you had an unusual experience at Mussolini's Villa. How about if you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we came across the lake in the ducks with a lot of other of our Company K mainly, and then they had some heavy weapons attached to us, I understand. In any event, we landed on this side up above Gargnano and set up a roadblock, and then when we learned from the Italians that the Germans had fled over the hill at dusk to get away, we then started marching down to town, and just before we got to town, they told us to go over and take this over this building. We go down, and it turns out to be Mussolini's villa, which we had no idea until then, until we got in it, that it was. And we all took turns sleeping in Mussolini's bed, because it was easy to determine which one it was. It had a four-poster, very nice room, and he had a total of 35 bedrooms we counted in that villa. And there was no one there when we arrived. He had already fled and eventually got caught by the partisans, of course, and killed. We stayed there quite some time, which was close to 3 weeks, as I remember. In any event, the war ended actually while we were still there, so we didn't go any further north. The rest of the division mainly went north, but our company stayed in this town right here until the end of the war.
What were you thinking when you were staying at Mussolini's Villa?
I just thought it was heaven after being in foxholes all the time, and the only other time I had a bed was right after we crossed the Po River. We went into this farmhouse, and I managed to get a room that had a feather bed in it, and I got to sleep there a couple of days. But the rest of the time, you were sleeping on floors or in foxholes all the time.
When you were at Mussolini's Villa, did you have a real sense of history about it?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Of course, we knew that he had, been dictator for a long time in Italy, and he had essentially given up for the Italians, but the Germans still kept him in power. And contrary to what I understood at the time, contrary to what I've heard since, he wasn't in house arrest here as far as we could determine, because he had free movement around town, and he obviously was able to leave the town to flee in his own car along with his mistress. And to our knowledge, his wife was never here. She may have been, but to our knowledge, she was not here.
So were you lucky enough to make it through the war without any injuries?
That's right. I didn't. There was only, in our platoon of about 40, there was only 11 of us that I knew of that had managed without any casualty of any sort. So that was lucky me and lucky the rest of the 10.
Did you, in the course of your battles, were there certain times, did you get any citations?
Well, I run a Bronze Star not long after Belvedere, when we had just passed Gorgolesco. We were relieving the 87th, and I just passed Togertogel. They were trying to save him. The medics were working over him with the intravenous feeding, and he was lying there. And everybody, of course, said, "There's Toggle." And of course, he didn't make it. And we went on up to a point where we were relieving the 87th. And it was no big deal that I got the Bronze Star for, but we were getting a lot of artillery coming in on us, and I was told to take my squad, I was only a squad leader then, my squad out and set up a defense out on the point of the ridge. And I just took the men out there and set them up, and in a defensive position, came back and told our lieutenant that it's done, we're all set, and he gave me an award for it. Because at that time we had a company sergeant who was hiding in a building where the company headquarters was set up, and he refused to get out of there, and so they ended up arresting him and taking him back, and he was court-martialed. So I guess because of that, or because of the way things were kind of tough at that time, I got an award for it, so not complaining.
What was your most, besides the Mussolini experience, which obviously is pretty amazing,
yeah, also.
Can you recount another memorable wartime experience?
Well, the closest I got to being wiped out was on 9/13. We had taken the mountain and slept that evening at the top. Next day we were going down the face, and the Germans had us zeroed in with their tanks, and they were shooting 88s at us, which just scream. They're like a huge rifle shell. They come in and they're just screaming at you, and they, very high impact. They're made for shooting tanks, not men, but boy. In any event, one of them passed me so close that it just spun me around, threw me to the ground, blew up behind me, and I thought, oh, I probably got it. And I felt around, nothing was hurting or didn't have any blood anywhere. I looked at my jacket though, and it had little tiny pieces of shrapnel that didn't even go through the jacket. They just kind of stuck on it, and that's all. So that was really the closest.
You were lucky.
Yes, I'll say. Because if that had hit me, that would have been the end right then and there.
How about memorable experiences training at Camp Hale?
Well, I was pretty lucky, I think, there, because I had been a skier, and not too great, but they sent me to ski instructor school, and then I got to instruct others in skiing, so that was great. And next thing you know, they sent me to rock climbing school, and I'd never rock climbed in my life either, so they made me a rock climbing instructor. So in the summer, I got to do that. So I had a great time, really.
Is there anything else that you'll wish you had told us? Anything else you want to tell us?
Well, that covers it enough, I think.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.